George Richard wasn't asleep, he was playing dead. The 72-year-old billionaire lay slumped in his study chair, skin deliberately chilled to feel like a corpse, $10,000 scattered across his desk like bait in a trap. He'd spent 20 years convinced that every human being was corrupt, that given the chance to steal without consequences, everyone would. Today, he would prove it one final time. Outside the door, footsteps approached. A desperate single mother and her 9-year-old son, both unaware they were about to walk into a test that would shatter everything George believed about humanity. What happened next would prove that sometimes, the person being tested isn't the one you think. George Richard had $300 million and zero faith in people. 3 children who called only for money. Business partners plotting his removal. Housekeepers who'd stolen jewelry, forged checks, pawned his dead wife's silverware. Every betrayal confirmed his thesis: humanity was rotten. So he designed the perfect experiment. He transformed his study into a frozen tomb, applied deathly makeup, positioned himself as a fresh corpse, and scattered $10,000 on his desk, more money than most people saw in months. An irresistible temptation. His target? Sharon Walker, his housekeeper of 3 months. A 34-year-old widow drowning in $68,000 of medical debt from her husband's heroic death. David Walker had been a bus driver who sacrificed himself to save 23 passengers. The city called him a hero. The hospital sent Sharon bills she'd spend years paying. For 3 months, Sharon had been perfect, arriving early, leaving late, cleaning with meticulous care. She needed this job desperately, wearing shoes with holes, buying dented cans, cutting her own hair. One mistake and she'd be destroyed. Then summer arrived with a crisis. Her son's school closed for repairs. No money for childcare. No options left. Sharon begged the estate manager, "Please. Just today. He'll be invisible. Mr. Richard won't even know he's here." Against her better judgment, Mrs. Chen agreed with a warning: "If Mr. Richard sees the child, you're both finished." Now Sharon hurried down the hallway toward the guest rooms, leaving 9-year-old James alone by the study door. "Stay right here, baby. Don't touch anything. Don't make a sound. Can you be brave for Mommy? I promise, Mama. I'll be invisible." The footsteps faded. George lay perfectly still, breathing imperceptibly. Now it was just him and the child. Him and his prey. He expected curious hands, open drawers, the rustle of money being taken. The boy would reveal his true nature. But James didn't move. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Then 5. Then small footsteps approached. James had seen the man in the chair, slumped unnaturally, mouth hanging open, skin gray, completely still. The boy's heart began to pound. Something was terribly wrong. "Mr. Richard?" James whispered. No response. James took a hesitant step forward. His mother had said to stay by the door, but what if Mr. Richard needed help? What if he was dying? The boy's eyes landed on the money scattered across the desk, more cash than he'd ever seen. But his gaze snapped back to the man. James took another step. Then another. George waited for the sound of bills being grabbed. Instead, he felt small fingers touch his wrist, checking for a pulse. The skin was cold. The boy moved his fingers to George's neck, pressing frantically, searching for a heartbeat. "Please wake up," James whispered, voice breaking. "Please." Then the boy stepped back, positioned himself beside the chair, and with startling force, George felt pressure on his chest. The child was performing CPR. 1, 2, 3, 4, James counted through tears, using all his strength. 1, 2, 3, 4. George's mind reeled. This wasn't the test. This wasn't what he'd planned. The compressions actually hurt. This wasn't gentle pressing. This was a 9-year-old using everything he had to restart a heart he believed had stopped. "Please don't be dead," James sobbed between compressions. "Please, please, please." George had prepared for theft, for greed, for moral failure. He hadn't prepared for this. For a child who saw a dead stranger and immediately tried to save him. For a boy who ignored a fortune to perform CPR learned at school. The compressions continued. 30 of them. Then rescue breaths. George had to suppress his body's response as small hands tilted his head and warm breath touched his lips. This child was following protocol exactly, treating a stranger with the urgency he'd give family. After 2 minutes, James stopped, exhausted. George heard him collapse beside the chair, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." George's carefully constructed test was crumbling. He'd set a trap for a thief and caught a saint. But maybe this was all theater. Maybe the boy was waiting for the right moment. Then James's hand reached toward the desk. Finally, George thought. But James's hand moved past the money. Instead, the boy's fingers closed around George's cold hand, holding it tightly. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," James whispered again. "I'm sorry." Then, in a voice so soft and broken it was barely audible, the boy began to pray. "Dear God, please take care of Mr. Richard's soul." James sat on the cold floor, his hand wrapped around George's lifeless fingers. His other hand gripped the silver cross at his neck, his father's cross, the one his hero father had worn the day he saved 23 lives. "I don't know if he was a good man or a bad man, God, but Mama says everyone has good in them. Please find the good parts and remember those. Everyone deserves forgiveness." George lay perfectly still, but inside, each word landed like a blow. This child who had every reason to be bitter was asking God to forgive a stranger's sins. Please let him know that someone tried to save him. That he didn't die with nobody caring. "I cared, God. I really cared." A tear slipped from beneath George's closed eyelid. He couldn't stop it. "I hope he wasn't scared when he died. I hope it didn't hurt. And I hope someone loved him and will miss him." "No one will," George thought with bitter clarity. "My children will miss my money. No one will miss me." But this child, this stranger's child, was mourning him, offering more genuine compassion than George's own children had shown in years. "And please, God, if he has children, help them not be too sad. Losing your daddy is the worst thing. I know." The words shattered something in George's chest. This boy who'd lost his own father was praying for George's children's comfort. Children who called only for money, who'd celebrate his death for the inheritance. "Thank you for letting me try to help him, even though I failed. Maybe just trying was something. Maybe that counted for something." George's throat closed. Every cynical belief, every bitter assumption, every wall around his heart was crumbling. He'd spent 20 years believing humanity was rotten to its core. This child was proving him catastrophically, beautifully wrong. Please, God, let him know he wasn't alone at the end. Let him know somebody cared. James laid his head on the armrest, his hand still holding George's. Exhausted but refusing to leave. No one should die alone. Then James stood, saw the money scattered on the desk, and moved toward it. George tensed. Here it is. The moment. But James didn't grab the money. He gathered it carefully, stacking it neatly. "You shouldn't leave money on the floor," he murmured. "Someone might steal it. That wouldn't be right. You can't protect your things anymore, so I'll make sure they're safe." James placed the bills in the center of the desk, securing them. Not stealing. Protecting. Then the boy returned, knelt down, and took George's hand again. "I won't leave you alone. Not until someone comes to help you." George Richard lay there, his test in ruins. He'd expected the worst of humanity and found the best. Every cynical belief was cracking, splintering, crumbling into dust. And beside him, a 9-year-old boy held the hand of a stranger, refusing to let him die alone. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Sharon burst through the door, arms full of cleaning supplies, already forming an apology. The words died in her throat. James was on the floor beside the chair, his hand wrapped around Mr. Richards. The billionaire lay motionless. And on the desk sat a neat stack of what looked like thousands of dollars. "James, what have you done?" The supplies crashed to the floor. Sharon grabbed her son, yanking him away. "Did you touch him? Did you touch his money? Oh God, we're ruined. Mama, he's dead. I tried to save him." "You just thought, he's just sleeping," but even as Sharon said it, doubt crept in. Mr. Richard looked so unnaturally still. I did CPR. I checked for his pulse. Mama, we have to call 911. Sharon's gaze darted to the money. Did you touch his money? I picked it up from the floor, James said desperately. It was scattered everywhere. I thought someone might steal it. He's dead, Mama. He can't protect his things anymore. Pride and terror warred in Sharon's chest. Her son had done everything right. And it would destroy them anyway. We have to leave. Right now. Before he wakes up. Mama, he's not going to wake up. He's fine. He's just sleeping, and when he wakes up and sees what you did. A long, theatrical groan cut through her words. Sharon and James froze. George Richard's eyes fluttered open slowly, seemingly disoriented. His gaze swept the room, ceiling, curtains, desk, then landed on them. His expression hardened into something cold and terrible. What, George Richard said, his voice like ice, is going on in my study? Sharon stepped in front of James protectively, her voice shaking. Mr. Richard, I'm so sorry. The school was closed, I had no childcare, I thought, I'm so sorry. Please. We'll leave right now. Just please don't. Did he touch my money? George's voice was sharp as broken glass. He was trying to help. Sharon's voice cracked. He thought you were, he tried to save. Did he touch my money? James stepped out from behind his mother, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, Mr. Richard. I thought you were dead. I tried to do CPR like they taught us at school. And your money was on the floor, and I didn't want anyone to steal it because you couldn't protect it anymore, so I put it on your desk where it would be safe. I'm really sorry if I did something wrong. Silence filled the study like water flooding a sealed room. George stared at the boy, at his tear-streaked face, his trembling hands still clutching his father's cross, his thin frame that spoke of too many missed meals. He looked at Sharon, shielding her son with her body, terrified but defiant. He looked at the money on his desk, neatly stacked. Protected. Not stolen. He looked at his own hands, where he could still feel the ghost of a child's grip. Still feel the desperate compressions. Still hear the broken prayer. Please let him know somebody cared. 20 years of cynicism. 20 years of tests and traps and bitter certainty. All destroyed by a 9-year-old boy who chose compassion over cash, who tried to save a stranger's life, who prayed for a dead man's soul, who refused to let someone die alone. George Richard had set out to prove humanity's corruption. Instead, he discovered his own. Get out, he said quietly. Sharon grabbed James's hand, already moving toward the door, tears streaming down her face. Wait. George's voice stopped them. He stood slowly, his joints protesting, his chest actually sore from the compressions. He looked at James. You really tried to save me? James nodded, unable to speak. And the money? You were protecting it? Another nod. George crossed to his desk, picked up the stack of bills. $10,000. The bait in his trap. The price tag on his cynicism. He held it out to Sharon. Take it. Sharon stared at the money like it was a snake. We didn't, I can't. Your son, George said, his voice rough with emotion, just taught a billionaire something about human decency. About compassion. About goodness I'd forgotten existed. Take it. It's not charity. It's payment for the most valuable lesson I've received in 20 years. Sharon's hands shook as she took the money. I don't understand. I was testing you. George's voice cracked. Testing your son. I pretended to be dead to see if he would steal. And instead. He looked at James. Instead, he tried to save my life. He prayed for my soul. He protected my belongings. He refused to let a stranger die alone. George's eyes filled with tears, real ones this time, not part of any performance. I spent 20 years believing everyone was corrupt. That given the chance, everyone would steal. And your son, your beautiful, brave son, proved me wrong. He knelt down slowly, bringing himself to James's level. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for trying to save me. Thank you for caring when you had no reason to care. Thank you for being proof that goodness still exists in this world. James threw his arms around George's neck, sobbing. And George, cynical, bitter, 72-year-old George, hugged him back, feeling something in his chest crack open completely. Not breaking. Opening. Like a door that had been locked for 20 years finally swinging wide. 6 months later, Sharon Walker became the estate manager of the Richard Mansion, her medical debts paid in full. James had a college fund that would take him anywhere he dreamed. George Richard reconnected with his children, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. The $10,000 from the desk was donated to James's school's CPR training program. The plaque read, "In honor of heroes who try to save lives, even when they're only 9 years old." George kept one thing from that day in his study, the memory of a small hand holding his, refusing to let a stranger die alone. It reminded him daily of what he'd almost missed by looking for the worst in people instead of the best. Sometimes the greatest test isn't whether someone will steal from you. It's whether you're brave enough to believe in goodness when the world has given you every reason not to.